Free my dad! He's innocent! The little girl's desperate scream echoed through the silent courtroom. Every head turned toward the 10-year-old standing alone in the aisle, clutching a worn envelope with trembling hands. The judge froze. The jurors exchanged uneasy glances. Even the prosecutor stopped speaking. Her father, wearing an orange prison uniform and handcuffs, lowered his head. Tears filled his eyes because he knew what she was about to do could change everything, or destroy the only family she had left. The bailiff rushed toward her, but before anyone could stop her, she shouted, "You arrested the wrong man! The real criminal is still free, and I can prove it!" The courtroom fell into complete silence. The judge slowly leaned forward and asked one question. "What evidence do you have, young lady?" The little girl walked toward the judge with slow, trembling steps. Her hands shook as she held out the old brown envelope. "I found this in my mom's attic," she whispered. "She told me never to open it unless something terrible happened to Dad." The judge carefully opened the envelope. Inside were several photographs, a handwritten letter, and a small USB drive. The prosecutor immediately stood up. "Your Honor, we object. This evidence hasn't been verified." Before the judge could respond, the little girl looked straight at the prosecutor. "You're scared of what's on that drive, aren't you?" The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge raised his hand for silence, picked up the USB drive, and stared at it for a long moment before ordering the court technician to connect it to the courtroom screen. Every eye was fixed on the monitor as it slowly came to life. The courtroom lights dimmed as the technician inserted the USB drive. A grainy security video filled the giant screen. It showed the night of the robbery. The jury leaned forward. The man everyone believed was the thief looked almost identical to the girl's father. Same height, same jacket, even the same beard. A few jurors gasped. Then the video zoomed in. The real criminal turned his face toward a streetlight for less than 2 seconds. A thin scar crossed his left eyebrow. The girl's father didn't have one. Silence swept through the courtroom. The defense attorney stood up instantly. "Your Honor, this is the first clear evidence that the man convicted may not be the man seen committing the crime." The prosecutor's confidence vanished. Then the little girl quietly pointed toward the back of the courtroom. "He's here!" Every person slowly turned around. A tall man near the courtroom doors froze the moment everyone looked at him. His face turned pale. Without saying a word, he spun around and ran. "Stop him!" the judge shouted. 2 bailiffs chased after him as people jumped from their seats. The courtroom doors slammed open. Outside, the man pushed through reporters and rushed down the courthouse steps. One bailiff tackled him, but he broke free and kept running. Then a detective who had quietly watched the trial for weeks stepped into his path. The man stopped for a split second. The detective looked directly at the scar above his left eyebrow. "So, it's been you all along?" The suspect tried to escape again, but officers surrounded him from every direction. As they forced him into handcuffs, he looked back toward the courtroom and smiled. The smile sent a chill through the courtroom. It wasn't the smile of a frightened man. It was the smile of someone who believed he was still going to win. The detective searched him before placing him in the patrol car. From inside the suspect's jacket, officers recovered a second phone, a fake driver's license, and a folded note. The detective unfolded the paper. His expression changed instantly. "Your Honor," he said, rushing back into the courtroom, "this wasn't just one man's crime." The judge took the note and read it in silence. Then he looked toward the prosecutor's table. For the first time that day, the prosecutor couldn't meet the judge's eyes. The judge slowly placed the note on the bench. "It appears someone inside this courtroom has been hiding the truth from the very beginning." The prosecutor slowly stood up, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your Honor, whatever is written on that note has nothing to do with this case. The judge looked at him for a long moment. Then you won't mind if I read it aloud? The prosecutor's face lost all color. The judge unfolded the note and began reading. Destroy the security footage. Make sure Daniel Hayes never leaves prison. Payment after the verdict. A wave of shock swept through the courtroom. The defense attorney immediately demanded a full investigation. The prosecutor shook his head. That note is fake. Before anyone could answer, the detective stepped forward holding the suspect's second phone. We've already unlocked it. He connected it to the courtroom screen. A series of messages appeared. The sender's name made the entire courtroom gasp. The courtroom screen displayed a single contact at the top of the message thread. District Attorney Victor Cole. A stunned silence filled the room. The prosecutor jumped to his feet. Those messages are fabricated. The detective calmly replied. We recovered this phone under a valid search warrant. Every message is time-stamped and backed up by the carrier. The judge narrowed his eyes. Read the last message. The detective took a deep breath. The jury votes tomorrow. Once Hayes is convicted, the witness disappears, and no one will ever know. The little girl covered her mouth. Her father closed his eyes in disbelief. The judge struck the gavel so hard it echoed through the courthouse. District Attorney Victor Cole, you are removed from this case effective immediately. Before the stunned prosecutor could say another word, 2 state investigators walked through the courtroom doors carrying a warrant with his name on it. As the investigators escorted Victor Cole toward the exit, he suddenly stopped. He turned to the judge and smiled. You think arresting me ends this? No one answered. Cole looked directly at Daniel Hayes. You were never the real target. The courtroom fell silent again. The judge demanded an explanation. Cole laughed softly. 5 years ago, Daniel witnessed something he was never supposed to see. Powerful people couldn't risk him talking, so they buried him behind a murder charge. The detective stepped forward. What did he witness? Cole's smile disappeared. You'll never find out. Before anyone could question him further, one of the investigators checked his phone. His face turned pale. Sir, the witness who was supposed to testify this afternoon. He paused. Has just disappeared. The courtroom erupted into chaos. The judge ordered everyone to remain seated while officers secured every exit. The detective grabbed the witness file. Who was responsible for protecting her? A marshal answered quietly. She vanished less than 10 minutes before arriving at the courthouse. The little girl felt her heart sink. If she doesn't testify, will my dad stay in prison? No one responded. Then the detective's phone rang. He listened for a few seconds before rushing toward the judge. Your Honor, we found the witness's abandoned car. Was there any sign of her? The detective nodded slowly. There was. He placed a small silver necklace on the evidence table. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. She recognized it immediately. That's my mom's necklace. The detective looked at her in disbelief. How do you know that? The little girl wiped away her tears. My mom wore that necklace every single day, she whispered. She disappeared the night before my dad was arrested. The courtroom went completely still. The detective stared at the necklace, then opened an old missing person file. The same silver necklace appeared in a photograph taken 5 years earlier. He looked up slowly. Your Honor, Daniel Hayes' wife didn't just disappear. What are you saying? The judge asked. The detective took a deep breath. I believe she was the key witness all along. Daniel gripped the defense table, unable to speak. I begged everyone to look for her, he said. No one believed me. Just then, a court officer rushed inside holding a sealed evidence box covered in dust. We found this in an abandoned storage locker rented under a fake name. The detective broke the seal. Inside was a video camera, with a memory card still inside. The detective carefully inserted the memory card into the courtroom computer. A shaky video appeared on the screen. A frightened woman looked directly into the camera. It was Daniel's missing wife. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means they found me, or they made me disappear." Daniel covered his mouth, unable to hold back his tears. She continued, "My husband is innocent. He never committed the crime they accused him of. I saw the real men that night." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. She slowly held up a folder. "Everything you need is inside this file. Names, payments, and the person who ordered it all." Suddenly, the video glitched. A loud bang echoed in the recording. She turned toward the sound, her face filled with fear. Then the screen went black. The detective opened the folder that had been hidden with the camera. Inside was a single photograph. The judge's expression changed the moment he saw who was standing in it. The photograph showed 5 people standing together outside an old warehouse. One face belonged to Victor Cole. Another belonged to the man with the scar. The third made the judge's hands tremble. It was former police chief Harold Bennett. The courtroom gasped. "He led the original investigation," the defense attorney said. "He was the one who claimed every piece of evidence pointed to Daniel." The detective nodded. "And he signed every search warrant." The judge immediately ordered Bennett to appear in court. Minutes later, officers returned with grim expressions. "Your Honor, Bennett resigned 3 years ago. Where is he now?" "No one knows." At that moment, the detective's phone buzzed. A patrol unit had just searched Bennett's abandoned lake house. They found a hidden basement. Inside were dozens of sealed evidence boxes from old criminal cases, including Daniel Hayes' missing case file. The detective broke the evidence seal with shaking hands. Inside Daniel's missing case file were documents no one had seen in 5 years. The first report caught his attention immediately. Fingerprint results, excluded from the trial. The fingerprints found at the crime scene belonged to someone else. Not Daniel. The courtroom erupted. The defense attorney slammed the report onto the table. "They had proof my client was innocent before this trial even began." The judge's face hardened. "Who authorized these documents to be hidden?" Before anyone could answer, another envelope slipped from the file. It contained bank records. 3 days before Daniel's arrest, a payment of $500,000 had been transferred to a secret account. The account holder's name was covered with black ink. The detective held the paper under a forensic light. The hidden name slowly appeared. The moment he read it, every color drained from his face. The detective looked up slowly. The money was transferred to Harold Bennett. A wave of disbelief swept through the courtroom. "So the former police chief was paid to frame an innocent man," the judge said. The detective nodded. "It appears the entire investigation was built on fabricated evidence." Just then, another officer rushed into the courtroom. "Your Honor, we've located Bennett." "Where?" "He was trying to board a private plane." "Was he arrested?" The officer hesitated. "No, sir." "What happened?" "When our team reached the airfield, they found the plane, but Bennett was gone." The detective frowned. "Did he leave anything behind?" The officer placed a black leather briefcase on the evidence table. "It was sitting in the middle of the runway." The detective unlocked it. Inside were stacks of cash, a passport under a fake name, and a handwritten letter. The first line made his heart stop. "If you're reading this, you're already too late." The detective unfolded the letter while the courtroom waited in silence. It wasn't a confession. It was a warning. You exposed one piece of the truth, not all of it. Harold Bennett didn't create this operation. He worked for someone far more powerful. The judge frowned. "Who?" The detective turned the page. A list of names appeared. Most were crossed out. Only one remained. There was no name beside it. Just a title. The chairman. Before anyone could react, the courtroom doors burst open. A federal agent rushed inside holding an emergency warrant. Your Honor, we have confirmed the organization behind this case has manipulated multiple convictions across the state. The judge stared at the file. How many victims? The agent answered quietly. At least 43. Daniel looked at his daughter, then back at the judge. So this was never just about me. The federal agent placed a thick stack of files before the judge. 43 innocent people were imprisoned using the same method, he said. Fake witnesses, altered reports, and missing evidence. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Daniel slowly stood. Can they finally prove I was framed? The agent nodded. Yes, but there's one final piece we still need. What is it? The judge asked. The identity of the chairman. Just then, the detective's phone buzzed. A forensic team had recovered deleted files from Harold Bennett's laptop. One file refused to open. Its password was hidden behind an encrypted message. The technician finally cracked it. The screen displayed a single video. The detective pressed play. A masked man appeared. His voice was calm. If you're watching this, it means Bennett has failed. Then the man slowly reached up and began removing his mask. The courtroom watched in complete silence. The masked man slowly pulled the disguise away. Gasps echoed through the room. It wasn't a stranger. It was Senator Richard Lawson, one of the state's most respected public figures. No, the judge whispered. Daniel stared at the screen in disbelief. The senator spoke calmly. If this recording exists, my operation has been compromised. Remove every witness and destroy every remaining file. The federal agent immediately grabbed his radio. Dispatch every available unit. The senator is now the primary suspect. Seconds later, another call came through. The agent answered, then froze. What happened? The judge demanded. The agent lowered the phone. Sir, Senator Lawson's mansion is empty. He escaped? The agent nodded. But he didn't run alone. Who went with him? The agent looked directly at Daniel. They took your wife. Daniel's legs nearly gave out. My wife is alive, he whispered. The federal agent nodded. We intercepted a coded message less than an hour ago. She's being held at an abandoned estate outside the city. The judge immediately suspended the trial. Go. Bring her back. A tactical team raced through the night. When they reached the estate, the gates were wide open. Too quiet. Inside, they found guards unconscious, as if someone had already fought their way through. Then they heard a voice calling for help. The officers rushed into the basement. A woman, weak but alive, was chained to a concrete wall. Daniel's wife? As they freed her, she grabbed the detective's arm. You don't have much time, she said. The chairman isn't running away. She looked directly into the detective's eyes. He's on his way to the courthouse right now. Back at the courthouse, panic spread through every hallway. Officers locked every entrance. Snipers took positions on nearby rooftops. The judge refused to leave the courtroom. If this ends today, he said, it ends in this courtroom. Minutes later, the front doors slowly opened. A gray-haired man in an expensive suit walked inside carrying nothing but a black cane. No fear. No bodyguards. He calmly removed his sunglasses. I believe you're looking for me. The federal agent raised his weapon. Richard Lawson, you're under arrest. The senator smiled. No. He reached into his jacket. Every officer tensed. Instead of a weapon, he pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the judge's bench. Everything is in there, he said. The names, the money, every crime. The judge stared at him. Why surrender now? Lawson looked at Daniel. Because the person who truly controlled all of this was never me. The courtroom fell silent. If it wasn't you, the judge asked, then who was? Lawson slowly opened the folder. At the very bottom was an old photograph taken nearly 20 years earlier. The judge, Harold Bennett, Victor Cole, and several other officials stood beside a smiling man whose face had never appeared during the investigation. The detective stared at the picture. I know him. He flipped the photo over. A handwritten note covered the back. He built the network. We only followed his orders. What's his name? Daniel asked. The detective's voice barely rose above a whisper. Jonathan Mercer. The federal agent immediately searched the national database. Nothing. No driver's license. No passport. No tax records. It was as if Jonathan Mercer had never existed. Then the courtroom doors opened again. An elderly man stepped inside carrying a sealed envelope. I've been hiding for 20 years, he said. And I know exactly where you'll find Jonathan Mercer. The elderly man placed the envelope on the judge's bench. My name is Samuel Brooks, he said. I was Jonathan Mercer's accountant. The detective carefully opened the envelope. Inside were ledgers, offshore account records, and one final document. A map. Red circles marked dozens of properties across the country. Safe houses, Samuel explained. Mercer used them to hide witnesses, money, and evidence. The detective pointed to one location. This cabin, it's only 30 miles from here. Samuel nodded. That's where Mercer goes whenever he's cornered. Within minutes, federal agents surrounded the remote cabin. No lights. No movement. The team forced the front door open. The house looked abandoned. Then an agent noticed fresh footprints leading to a hidden trapdoor beneath an old rug. The detective pulled it open. A staircase disappeared into darkness. From somewhere below came the sound of slow, steady footsteps. The tactical team descended the narrow staircase with flashlights raised. The air was cold and filled with dust. At the end of the tunnel stood a heavy steel door. The detective pushed it open. Inside was a hidden command room. Walls were covered with photographs, case files, bank records, and newspaper clippings dating back more than 20 years. In the center of the room sat an old wooden desk. On it rested a recorder. The detective pressed the play button. A calm voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, you've finally reached my office. It was Jonathan Mercer. I never expected Bennett or Lawson to stay loyal forever. The recording paused for a second. You've been chasing the wrong man. The detective frowned. What does he mean? Then the recording continued. My real name isn't Jonathan Mercer. Every officer looked at one another. The man you're searching for has been standing inside that courtroom since this trial began. A wave of disbelief swept through the courtroom. No, the judge whispered. The detective replayed the final sentence. The man you're searching for has been standing inside that courtroom since this trial began. Every officer instinctively turned toward the people inside the room. The judge. The defense attorney. The court clerk. The bailiffs. Even the reporters. No one moved. Then the elderly accountant, Samuel Brooks, slowly pointed across the courtroom. I recognize him. The detective followed his finger. A quiet court clerk who had spent the entire trial organizing files suddenly stepped backward. His hands began to shake. Don't come any closer, he said. The detective's eyes narrowed. You've been listening to every witness, handling every piece of evidence. The clerk smiled. You finally figured it out. Before anyone could reach him, he pressed a hidden button beneath the clerk's desk. The lights across the courthouse instantly went dark. Darkness swallowed the courthouse. People screamed. Chairs crashed to the floor. Emergency lights flickered on, casting a dim red glow across the courtroom. "Nobody move!" the detective shouted. The court clerk was gone. The hidden door behind the records room stood open. The tactical team rushed through it. At the end of the narrow hallway, they found the clerk standing beside a steel exit. He calmly removed his glasses and peeled away a thin layer of makeup. The elderly face disappeared. Standing before them was a much younger man. The detective froze. "Jonathan Mercer." Mercer smiled. "You finally caught up." Before anyone could reach him, Daniel's wife stepped forward. "I know where the original evidence is." Mercer's smile vanished for the first time. She pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. "I've carried this for 5 years." The detective took the drive and plugged it into his laptop. One file opened. Its title appeared on the screen. Final Confession. The detective clicked Final Confession. Jonathan Mercer's face filled the screen. "For 20 years, I built a network that sold justice to the highest bidder. Judges were deceived, officers were bribed, and innocent people were sent to prison. Daniel Hayes never committed the crime. Every piece of evidence against him was manufactured under my orders." The courtroom stood in stunned silence. The judge slowly rose. "Daniel Hayes, this court vacates your conviction effective immediately. You are a free man." Tears streamed down Daniel's face as he embraced his wife and daughter for the first time in 5 years. Federal agents placed Mercer in handcuffs. As they led him away, he lowered his head. "This is the first time justice has defeated me." The judge struck the gavel one final time. Case dismissed. For the first time in years, the courtroom erupted, not with arguments or fear, but with applause, as an innocent father finally walked out the front doors with his family beside him. If this story touched your heart, and you believe justice should always prevail, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful stories like this. We'll see you in the next story.